Alright, so it's time to add some JavaScript to our project and make Cube working. Unlike previous projects, in this one we will use relatively much more JavaScript. So let me explain what we're going to do. When we hover on left and right arrows, Cube should be rotated, and when we click them, slideshow should be started. I mean, on each click, Cube will be rotated once. As for play pause button, it will manage to run slideshow automatically and then pause it on click. Alright, let's go ahead and start working on that. At first, I'm going to remove transform property from Cube. We were using it just for testing purposes, so we don't need it anymore. Let's start programming left and right arrows, and then after that we will move on to play pause button. Attach click event to one of the arrows, let's say to left one. Let's go to app.js file and select this element. Write document dot query selector, and inside parentheses insert class name left arrow. Then add event listener, insert here click event and also arrow function. So before we rotate Cube, let's test if click event works properly. For that, let's run in console. Clicked. Let's inspect the page and switch console tab. So if we click on left arrow, then we will get output in console saying clicked. So it means that click event works good. Let's go ahead and rotate Cube. As you know, we have 3 different cubes. We need to rotate all of them. Therefore, we have to select all 3 cubes. Let's create variable const cubes. In order to select them, I'm going to use selector called query selector all. So write document dot query selector all. As you know, cubes have common class cube, so let's insert it. And then see in console what this selector returns. So write console.log cubes. Let's click. And you see that we have here in console node list. Actually, node list is an array-like collection, but it's not array. So in order to rotate cubes, first of all, we need to transform node list into array. For that, in ES6, we have a method called array.from. And inside parentheses, we have to insert node list. So write cubes. So now it already gives us array, and we need to loop through items of array and assign to each item transform property. In order to do that, I'm going to use method called forEach, which actually allows us to execute function for each array item. Let's insert here arrow function. This function should have parameter, and it's going to be current item of array. Basically, it's a good practice to insert here same name in singular form, I mean cube. Alright, so when we have only one parameter, then we don't need parentheses anymore. Let's get rid of them. So as we said, on click we need to transform cube. We will need here only one statement, so we don't need to use curly braces as well. Let's transform cubes, write cube.style.transform, which should be equal rotate y by 90 degrees. Alright, let's go to browser, click, and you see that cube is rotating, but it happens only once. We indicate it as a value just 90 degrees. On second click, cube is already rotated by 90 degrees, so that's why we don't have any other rotation. We need to program it in a dynamic way. And by the way, in order to make rotation nicer, let's use transition. Go to style.css file. Actually, we need rotation of cubes to happen with slight intervals. So we need to use different delay time for that. Let's select cube 1 and assign to it transition with transform, and as a duration write 0.4 seconds. For cube 1 we don't need any delay. Let's copy this line and paste it for cube 2 and add here delay time as 0.2 seconds. Then select cube 3, paste here transition and add delay time as 0.4 seconds. Let's click, and you can see that now cube is rotating and it creates much more nicer effect. Alright, let's go back to app.js file. As we said, we need to program rotation in a dynamic way. For that we have to create variable which will store amount of degrees dynamically. So let's create variable outside of this code. Write let x, and as an initial value let's write here 0. So initially x equals to 0, but on each click we want it to be increased by 90 degrees. And then we have to use this dynamic value as an amount of degrees for cube. In order to increase value by 90 degrees, we have to write here x plus equals 90. Then we need to insert x inside here instead of 90. I'm going to use here ES6 syntax, I mean template literals. For that, instead of quotes, we have to use backticks. We need to use $, and then inside curly braces, we have to use x. So it means that on each click, cube will be rotated by 90 degrees. For better understanding and for demonstration, let's run this value in console, write console.log x. And also let's get rid of this line, we don't need it anymore. Alright, let's click. And you see that cube is rotating, and on each click, value of x variable is increasing by 90. Okay, so at this point everything works perfectly. We have programmed left arrow, but we need to do the same for right arrow as well. Let's stop here and continue working on that in the next video.